Welcome to another 10 with Ken. This week I'm at Sheridan College, speaking with Janet Morrison, the president and vice-chancellor. Over the past 2 weeks, Janet and I have discussed creativity as an essential skill for the future workforce, and ways in which higher ed can support student success and mental health. In the final part of our conversation, we turn to the increasingly gray area between 2- and 4-year institutions.
I've come to feel very strongly that this bifurcated lens on post-secondary in Ontario, where we have colleges and we have universities, really isn't meeting the needs of learners today, and it's certainly not what, by all accounts, is being forecasted in terms of the needs of learners going forward. The system has to evolve.
This week, Janet Morrison on the differences and synergies between university and college. Thank you for taking some time to talk with me this morning, Janet.
Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to Sheridan.
Thank you. Traditional mindset in Canada has been that universities are places that cultivate civic skill sets and humanities and so on, and that colleges have been much more tactical in their focus on career programming and so on. But there is a way in which over the last couple of decades we've seen a shift, that universities are becoming more and more applied, that colleges are becoming more and more expansive, really, in their view of how they're preparing students. The epicenter of activity as we go forward here is at that intersection, the hybrid institutions, the collaborative programming, the polytechnics. What's your perspective on the two types of institutions, and what ways are these evolving now?
Yeah. I've come to feel very strongly that this bifurcated lens on post-secondary in Ontario, where we have colleges and we have universities, really isn't meeting the needs of learners today, and it's certainly not what, by all accounts, is being forecasted in terms of the needs of learners going forward. And so as we think about creativity and innovation, the system has to evolve and think about what increasingly we know about work in the future. You know, are we building students with a capacity to be agile and change-adept and resilient, independent, creative thinkers, comfortable in an innovative or morphing space? So Sheridan's approach, we offer 26 4-year honors baccalaureate degree programs. The quality of those programs is exceptional. The rigor in terms of the review and approval process is at the same height as university caliber programming. All of our degree programs incorporate work-integrated learning, and that happens through co-op, through placements, through internships. It can happen through capstone projects or applied research projects with faculty. A student told me last week it's the secret sauce that pulls it all together. Our faculty members are actively engaged with employers, industry, community leaders, organizations, NGOs to understand what's happening in those environments. We feel that what we're doing is at the nexus of both a theoretical and a practical preparatory program that positions students for success. We pepper into all of that creativity, innovation, hands-on learning, smaller class sizes. The goal and objective is to deliver on the integrity of our promise, which is that we'll position you for work and life. I think pathways matter. I think options and opportunities matter. Very rarely do you meet a student now who says, I'm going to be X, with any amount of confidence that that's really what they're going to be. I think there's data that says that between early 20s and 40s, on average, learners graduating today are going to undergo 11 career changes. That wasn't my lived reality. I don't know about you, but it wasn't my lived reality.
4 maybe.
Yeah, so 11 is a lot. And so, that's not about a credential. That's about skills, and it's about behavioral attributes that position human beings to be lifelong learners and adept, agile change agents.
In a lot of ways, what we've got to do, and there's recognition of this at the elementary and secondary levels as well, that we need to prepare students with a new set of competencies, a lot of flexibility and resilience, a lot of lifelong learning patterns in a way that has never really been true before, to sort of prepare them for this dynamic workforce environment, but also that we need to start reconsidering how we credential student learning. That whether that's badging or other forms of acknowledging skills and competencies in a way that would be much more flexible.
Yep.
So, at the moment, our pathways for articulation and transfer of college students to university or vice versa tend to be at the course level or sometimes at the credential level. So maybe you can get credit for a full year, maybe you get credit for a full course. Does seem to me like inevitably we've got to get to a point where we can give students credit for less than a full course, that there can be microcredits that are transferable as they move between institutions or between programs.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how long it's going to take us to truly get to a point where institutions can all think in those terms.
Yeah, and in the complexity of that landscape around pathways, we often talk about pathways in. A quarter of Sheridan students come to our institution already with an undergraduate degree earned in the university sector. We can talk about pathways through. At Sheridan, there are 70 different pathways to our degree program. So there are lots of students who come in. They may be in a skilled trade, they may be in a certificate, a diploma program. There are pathways to get to degree programs for those students who change their minds or start to see a different exit point from where they originally envisioned. We then have these graduates, and the example I always use because it's inarguable and compelling is animation. So in Sheridan's most globally recognized prestige space.
Number one ranked in the world, not that long ago.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't need to. But in that space that our students don't have unfettered access to graduate programming would suggest to me that we need a rethink. So as we talk about preparing our students for that future world, what are we as a system doing? And it isn't that it isn't possible. It does happen. But it's complicated and it's not systemic. And so how are we thinking about that?
Each student has to make their case.
Each student has to make their case. And in many instances, that involves some help, right? From the registrar, from the provost, to try and make that happen. We've got pathways, 40-year-old agreements and pathways with the University of Toronto. Students in our architecture programs, again, pathways to master's degrees in the US. These are the types of things, or the types of programs, pathways, articulation agreements, memorandums of understanding, both domestically and internationally, that are not without their challenges, for sure. But if we expect students to navigate gray space in a way that's agile and adaptive and we have to do it. We have to do it too.
We shouldn't be putting it all on the backs of
And
the
I'm so
students
proud
to
of my
figure that out.
colleagues. You know what? They're game for all of this. And our strategic planning process has really affirmed for me our readiness to be responsive. I also think there's lots of pathways we've got to rethink around developing global competency and global citizenship. So increasingly we have learners, whether they're domestic or international in enrollment status. We have a high percentage of learners whose lived experience has been global in context. Are we truly capitalizing on that in classrooms? How do we think about prior learning assessment, not just for domestic students, but for international students who may have internationally earned credentials? How are we thinking? I think this is posing challenges for us, particularly as we look forward 10, 20 years down the line. And Sheridan's positioning is that a simplistic continuum of colleges at one end and research-intensive universities at the other may need some reflection and some adaptation to ensure that we truly are delivering on the mandate to serve all learners with a wealth of aspirations and goals. Difficult conversations for sure. They're going to demand courage. They're going to demand creativity. But it's kind of an exciting space to be in as an educator, I hope as a student, certainly as a faculty and staff member. And I honestly think when you put learners at the center, whether you think about learners as faculty, staff, or students, if you position learning and learners at the center, there's far more alignment than you'd sometimes think.
I think we could talk all day. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Janet. This has been an interesting discussion, and
Thank you so
I
much.
hope we have a chance to pick it up again.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's great.
Okay.
We have a world of higher ed innovations and bright ideas to bring you in the weeks ahead. To be sure you don't miss a thing, take a moment now to subscribe. And thanks for watching.
You want to take one, alpha mark, beta mark, soft 6 mark.
Quick focus group.
No, no, no.
I can still speak to this one?
Yeah.
Hopefully I got that right.